Alright guys, VLM here, back with a new video, and here we are finally back talking about Survivor South Africa, where we just got the cast of Season 9, Return of the Outcasts, and with it being a returnee season, like other returnee seasons I've done in the past, here we'll be doing a pre-season power ranking, where I'll be ranking every player from this cast based on how likely I feel like they are to win the game, with the number one pick here being my winner pick for the season. Now, I will talk about some more general things before we get into the ranking itself, some news that we've heard in the last few weeks. The biggest of which being the fact that we're getting 4 episodes a week, which is too much. Obviously, kind of molding itself after the Australian Survivor release schedule, and I really don't like it. Again, I can see the benefit of it, but again, 4 episodes is a lot. Which also means that we're probably going to be running through this season pretty quickly. I would expect in about a month. It feels kind of disappointing to see it come and go so quickly. And for me as a content creator, it makes it a bigger pain to cover as well, considering the shortened amount of time I have to put things together. So I'm kind of annoyed on that front, but obviously still really excited for the season as a whole. I mean, the cast here is interesting. I mean, I've talked about it extensively already in my rumored cast reaction, which my opinions haven't really changed since then. So if you just want to hear my basic thoughts on the casting choices here, you could probably go look at that. But again, it was interesting to see that it was all true, considering the cast looked like a bit of a train wreck. Though again, I understand what they're doing here. They clearly don't want to go the way of typical all-star seasons where these big threats are taken out immediately. And here they're trying to counter that by having what is essentially a second chance season here, but also we're having the tribe split up between people that made the merge and people that were pre-merge, which I think also minimizes the threat level of some of these players. So again, I get what they're doing. And really just after watching the cast trailer that came out, I mean, it really did make me excited for this season. It is really cool to be seeing some of these figures back, especially the people from before the rebooted series. I mean, to see Shane, Marion, Tajan back is insane to me. So even though there are some very questionable choices in the cast for me, especially in terms of who isn't there, I feel like I'm still going to love the season nonetheless. But with that, let's get into the ranking itself. Again, ranking all 20 players on how likely I feel like they are to win. At number 20, at the bottom, this one was a slam dunk for me. I think this is someone that I have no faith in ever playing the game of Survivor well, and that person is Tanya, who, again, kind of came off as Debbie Wanner-esque figure her first time around, and I don't really see that changing here. I think she's pretty much going to be the same person again. She's probably going to be a fun character, but not someone I'm actually expecting to do well, someone that I don't even expect to make a deep run, and even if they do, I don't think she's going to gain the respect to win the game. I think it's a very tough road for Tanya here, and I really just cannot see a world where she wins the game, which, to be fair, is the same thing as the next few people we'll be talking about. I really feel like the level of respect that she's going to have by this cast is even less than the next people. So again, I don't think she's necessarily doomed in terms of longevity. I just don't think there's any chance she wins, even if she has that longevity. And because of that, she's here at number 20. Number 19, moving on to a player that I remember thinking had some potential in the preseason of their season, but then afterwards really didn't see it, and very surprised to see them back here. At number 19, we do have Pinty. And again, I'm surprised they brought Pinty back. I do find it funny in the bio, it's mentioned that she's learned a lot in the last few months since the season filmed. It's did she though? I really feel like Pinty's going to be the exact same as well. Again, I feel like the shortened amount of time in between this and her last season is not really enough for her to truly develop from that. Or if she does, I think she's going to go completely in the opposite direction of trying too hard to not be this kind of aggressive personality, and through that come off way too passive. I very much doubt that she's going to find the happy medium that she would probably need to be a better Survivor player here. And it's knowing that, again, I just cannot see Pinty actually winning this game. Mind you, again, I think if it somehow becomes a final 2 of her and Tanya or something, I think Pinty's more likely to win that jury vote. I think Pinty's more likely to gain respect from the rest of the cast, but I just still don't really see it being super likely based on what we saw the last season. It's been such a short amount of time since then. So because that, Pinty's here at number 19. Now number 18, moving on to a player that I thought was going to be on the bottom on the offset, considering I've debated in the past, is this the worst Survivor South Africa player of all time? But she's back. At 18, we do have Teriso. Really, again, it's the same thing. Teriso's another player. She literally just played her last season. I really feel like it's probably going to go around the same. And again, if not, being taken towards the end to where she probably won't have that great of a chance of winning. But I feel like the potential is more there than Tanya and Pinty. I mean, Teresa's at least a super fan of the show, so I feel like she should know what she should do strategically. Though what I did find funny is that in her bio, it is mentioned that she had the moves last time. She just didn't have the social ability to pull them off, which is like, I don't feel like she had the moves either. I don't feel like anything she did, even if she was able to execute it, would have worked out well for her either. Again, I don't really see it for me, but I do feel like the level potential is there more than the last two people, to where, again, I'm hoping to be surprised. I would love it if Teresa ended up becoming one of the all-time great Survivor South Africa players. I just really do not see it happening. And she lands here at number 18. Now number 17, moving on to another pre-merge boot. This one being a much bigger question mark to me, and is really the reason why she's higher than the previous few, and that person is Killarney. And again, I cannot believe Killarney is playing Survivor again. Really, the first time I watched Champions, I really didn't get much from Killarney. Like, while I do think she was mistreated on that season, especially by Zan, I never truly got the sense that she was someone that could have been that good at the game. And now obviously she's back here years later in a position where she should know the game better. I believe she was not a fan coming into it the first time. So the fact that she is more aware of the game now, then maybe there's going to be some potential there. Really though, I feel like she's just a complete unknown for me. Again, like, she's really someone that I never really thought of as a potential returnee. But based on her last appearance, I don't expect it to go particularly well, because like, even if the Zan situation didn't happen, she still wasn't able to really build trust with literally anybody, even the people that were on the outside. So again, I don't really expect it to go on a return, but again, I would like to be surprised. But for me, she's here at 17. Now number 16, finally moving to a post-merger, and we have another person that I don't think he's going to change his game. I think he's going to play the exact same way, and that person is Dante. And Dante's another one that mentioned that, oh, my social game was my issue and that he needs to fix that, which, by the way, a lot of people on this cast mentioned that, which I did find very humorous. But I really expect Dante to play the exact same way. I don't get the sense that he's really learned that much from his last time. Mind you, again, like, I am doing this almost immediately after the cast reveal with the bios. So for all I know, in the more long-form interviews, maybe he did do a lot of research coming into this. But I don't expect Dante to be someone that is taking this too seriously. Like, to me, Dante just kind of feels like a lesser version of Chappies, and one that has probably less potential in the game than Chappies, to where I do feel like they're very similar archetypes, to the point where, like, I was very surprised that they cast both of them. But really, Dante's just one that I don't really have that much faith in, outside of the potential of maybe being able to group together all the people from his original tribe, which is, again, really weird that his original tribe from Island of Secrets has 4 people here. Mind you, there's a lot of conflict between them, but he still does have good relationships with Meryl and Felix, to where that could ingratiate himself in the game. But I do think for the most part, I'm not expecting to go super well. He's here at number 16. Number 15, someone I just mentioned, back to the pre-mergers, we're on to Felix. And again, another one, I never expected Felix to play Survivor again. But coming into this, I do think he's not in a bad position necessarily. Obviously, my biggest issues are the fact that he just didn't seem to be that good of a player last time, to where he did seem to be very domineering, to where, like, yes, he was able to bond with, again, the Dante and Meryls of the world, but once he got swapped into a different group of people, he just pissed them off, got voted out immediately. So again, I don't know how he's really gonna improve on this return. He did talk about toning down his personality, but I do feel like that's hard to do, kind of in a similar way to Pinty. Like, I just don't know if he can actually do it. And even if he does, is he really going to be this top contender anyway? Like, I feel like there's so many other players on this season that feel like they're going to be more active players, and because I just don't really know where Felix is going to go, because that he's here at 15. Now 14, similar thing, but I do think this one could be a bit more of a dark horse, and that person is Philip. And Philip, to me, is one of the bigger question marks on the board as well. Again, him and Killarney, 2 people I never expected to see back from that far back, and to see them now play the game, 8-9 years later, like, it is going to be very interesting to see how they approach the game here. I will say I was a little bit underwhelmed by Philip's bio. I was hoping to hear more about how he's going to change his approach to the game. Mine, obviously, again, like, I'm expecting to get interviews later on where he will explain that, but just based on the bio that I've seen, didn't really get that sense. But I do really wonder how he's going to play this game here. Again, he was someone that, while kind of on the outs for a lot of his first season, he spent a lot of it in self-preservation mode, and he did go and steal sugarcane and that sort of thing, and, like, he did some stuff on the season. Like, I think he could be a very, like, sneaky player that could potentially do well here on the return. That's why I do think he's a dark horse, but when we just have so much more to gauge their games off of with a lot of the other members of this cast. I just didn't feel as confident in Philip here. So for me, he's here at 14. Now at 13, also from Champions, very disappointed I have to have her this low, and that person is Shona. And I really like Shona. Shona is one of my favorite pre-merge characters in probably all of SA. And I think this is one of the more interesting arcs on the return here for Shona, where Shona is, again, like almost 10 years older than what she was last time, where she was, I believe, 24, now she's 33. Like, that's obviously a lot of life experience that occurs during that time. However, the real thing for me is, like, has she changed personality-wise? Where I do think she came off a bit intense her first time around. I do think that is a big factor into her downsides. I'm like, really, like, her also being one of the physically weakest on the tribe and being on a season called Champions, I feel like that definitely didn't help her either, which is something that she's not going to have to face on this season, where I do expect this season to be a mostly hyper-strategic season. And I feel like that definitely could benefit Shona. However, again, like, I just don't know if that intensity is still there. And even if it isn't, I feel like there's still a lot of potential for her being a relatively early boot. But if she were to make it to the merge, I'll feel pretty good about her longevity. Boy, it really is this, like, inconsistency for me that makes me struggle with putting her higher on the list, even though I really want to. But she's here at 13. Now, number 12, moving back to the post-mergers, and here's another person that I did struggle with a bit, and I think from this point forward, like, these are all, like, pretty solid picks. I feel like any of these people could potentially win this game, but at the bottom of this grouping, I do have to have Steffi. And a lot of this comes from the fact that, again, I don't know how much Steffi has changed since the last time she played. Again, she's another one of these people that talks about how she needs to work on her social game, but again, that's, like, literally everyone in this cast. And I feel like she is the person that, based on their last season, was the most, like, dead in the water in terms of jury potential, which I think is definitely something that's factoring into me, where, like, I just don't think Steffi could ever win Island of Secrets. And the fact that she was this massive goat that didn't even get taken to the end on that season, I think is definitely something to consider here. Also, strategically, I'm not sure if she's all there. I do feel like there's some question marks on how cutthroat should be willing to be on the return, where, I mean, the first time around, she was mostly loyal until the point where she turns on Rob, but then doesn't even secure that, which causes her eventual boot. Again, I feel like there are some pretty major red flags based on her first appearance, but on the return, it's like, if she's learned from those things, she could definitely do very, very well. It's just, I don't know if she has, and because of that, for me, she's here at 12. Now, number 11, moving on to a player that I feel like I have a lot more information on, but because I have more information on, it makes me a lot more conflicted on him. And at number 11, we do have Tony. And yeah, I mean, like, I just don't really know how to gauge Tony here, where I think her first time around, she played pretty well for the first half or so, like always remaining in the majority, had some pretty strong personal bonds. But then once she gets to merge, she's just outnumbered and gets outplayed by Werner. But then since then, she was involved in the Survivor Sequester game that happened, that she didn't perform the greatest, where she seemed to be a bit too passive in that game. So that's something to mention here. But then also, she's probably one of the people coming into this that has some of the most relationships on this cast. Like, she is someone that very much frequents the charity events, and I feel like because that she's gotten to know a decent amount of these players, to where I feel like that definitely could be an upside, though it could also be a downside in people knowing how connected she is. But again, as a whole, like, I think it really just comes out as a mixed bag for me. Like, I think she had some good potential her first time around, but then struggled to get out of a bad spot. She played a bit too passively on Survivor Sequester, but she's well connected, which can be a double-edged sword. So again, like, I think it could really go all over the place for Tony here. So for me, she lands here at number 11. Now, number 10, we're moving on to a person that I think probably has the biggest target on his back coming into this return. But I do think there is more potential for him than there would be for most other people in this spot, and that person is Chappies. And Chappies is obviously just coming off last season, where he got the final 3, almost won the game, came off looking as a pretty strong player, and especially a strong player in terms of challenges, but still a player that does have the killer instinct. Like, he does seem like a pretty well-rounded player. Again, the problem is the target. Like, I think he's coming into this with a pretty big target on his back. Mind you, I do think the post-merge versus pre-merge delineations does help him a bit. Plus, also, I do think his physicality is going to help him a bit, to where I feel like they're going to think that they need him in challenges early on. That might keep him around, and it might keep him around for too long, to where it's too late to eventually take him out. And I think if he does get to the end on this season, like, unless he does some irrespectable stuff along the way, I feel like he is one of the most likely winners of this cast. If he gets the final tribal, the problem is obviously getting there. But I don't think it's the hardest road in the world. But again, like, I just feel like the target target on his back is going to be so massive here that I think by the time of the merge, I think it's going to be tough for him to navigate that early portion of the game there, though if he can somehow like win out or get a core group and control it from that point forward, like I think there is a lot of potential here, but again, it is a high variance game still, so he's here at 10. Now number 9, we're moving on to a player that I do think showed a lot of potential his first time around, and I feel like now could be the time for him to show that potential, and that person is PK. Now, the problem with PK for me is I still feel like he is a bit all over the place strategically. Like he is a person that is very chaotic and likes to cause drama. And I don't know if that play style is really going to work out for him. But again, I don't know if that's going to be his play style this time either, though. But if it is, again, like I think it can be a bit high variance. That being said, I don't think he's in a bad spot on a return here. I think he's actually in a pretty decent spot. Already has a naturally ingrained ally in Tony being someone that is well connected. So like he should be fine for the short term. The question for me is, again, how is he going to navigate later down the road? Is he going to overplay his hand and get targeted along the way? I do suspect it, but again, I do feel okay about PK. But again, it's just I feel a lot more confident about a lot of other people. And because of that, for me, PK lands here number 9. Now, number 8, moving on to a player that I am so excited to see this person back. It blows my mind that we're actually getting to see him play Survivor again, and really just looking at his cast photo and looking at how different he looks from his first time around also just kind of warms my soul in terms of seeing him finally get another shot, and that person is Shane. And again, I love Shane. I thought he was a great villain his first time around, has a fantastic downfall. And I think on the return here, I expect it to be more of the same. I do expect him to try to take control of his tribe. He's obviously going to be a very crafty player. He does have a naturally ingrained ally off the bat in Marion. So again, there's definitely some positives here, but I think the downsides are kind of the same as they were last time. I feel like there's a lot of potential for him to be flipped on along the way. Or again, his play style is like, I guess you can say kind of similar to that of like a Boston Rob. And in a hyper strategic season that I'm expecting this to be, I just don't know if he can hold it all together the entire way. Also, I feel like a downside here is the fact that I do feel like he's one of the least connected of this cast, where like a certain other person from his season or even the season before him, who I feel like are pretty well connected coming in the season, I don't feel like Shane is. Again, I don't know who Shane has relationships with here, and I feel like that can also be an issue for him as well. So again, like I am expecting him to hopefully go far, but I just don't know if he can hold it all together to get to the very end. But if he were to somehow get to the end, I feel like he is a pretty likely winner. But even then, I wouldn't even rule out the fact that he goes out early, considering he could try to take control of the tribe and it not working out in his favor. I don't have enough faith in him to actually get to the very end. So for me, he's here at number 8. Now, number 7, we're moving on to a player that I thought had so much potential the first time around. And while I do think he could live up to that potential on the return here, I also feel pretty worried about him as well, and that person is Tevin. Now, Tevin, I think, is probably one of the people most harmed by this post-merge versus pre-merge delineation in the fact that he is one of the biggest targets on the pre-merge tribe. Like, he is one of the bigger names of the pre-mergers, to where I think that definitely puts a target on his back. I think also the fact that he came off so blatantly strategic and schemy, I think could also harm his perception here. But he did play pretty well for a lot of his run on Philippines. And I feel like if he were able to do that here again, but just not have PK make a really dumb move, I think Tevin would have a lot of potential on the return here. I do worry for him early on, though. I feel like the fact that he is on this tribe of, let's just say, less strategic figures, I feel like that can definitely harm his potential in the game here, but I still feel pretty good about him here. He is older than what he was last time, where he was kind of on the younger side of things. I believe he's still the youngest person on this cast, which is ridiculous. But again, this is obviously a lot more older skewing cast here. But I feel like Tevin could do well, but I do feel like there's some variance early on that makes it a bit hesitant for me. He's here at number 7. Now, number 6, we're moving on to someone that, just like Shane, I am so excited to see back. I cannot believe we are getting this person back. I remember when I first watched all these international seasons, coming out of watching every SA season, this person was one of my favorite characters and players. And considering it's been over 10 years since he's last played, it's insane that we're going to be seeing Tajan play Survivor again. And again, like, Tajan was probably the one that, like, again, like, in the actual video where they revealed the cast, just seeing Tajan there made me smile. It's like, it is insane to me that we are getting to see him play again. And I think he's actually in a pretty good spot here. I do think the one big question mark for me is the fact that he is known as a villain. Like, even in his bio, they talk about him as like one of the first Survivor South Africa villains, and that he's known as a strategic player. And I think, like a Shane, I feel like that could be this reputation that kind of harms him. Mind you, he's on the tribe with Shane, where I feel like Shane should come off as a bigger threat than him. Also, I feel like Tejan is well more connected. As I mentioned before, like, Tejan is one of these people that does go to a lot of charity events, and I feel like he should know a lot of the people coming into this cast. Also, he's a big fan of the show. I'm pretty sure he's continued watching the show in the years that's passed. I mean, for the time, he was a very innovative player, playing one of the most strategically aggressive games at that time in 2011. So I'm just so excited to see him actually get to play again here. And again, I am expecting it to go pretty well. I do think he will have Shane as a shield for him here. These two people have similar reputations, but Shane being the one that's least connected and also probably the more intimidating figure. But the reason he's not at the very top for me is, again, I do still feel like there'll be a level of a target on him for being this villainous figure. I think might catch up to him by the end game. But again, I am so happy to see him back. I do hope it goes well for him, and he's here at number 6. Now, number 5, same thing. Insane that this person's back. So happy this person's back. And I will say, I thought this person was going to be number 1 coming into this ranking. Before reading the bios, before doing anything, I literally had this person at number 1 on my power ranking. However, I did drop it down largely for similar reasons to Tejan. And at number 5, we do have Marion. And again, like, I think the thing about Marion is that she is going to be known as this big Survivor villain. Like, that is her reputation. Where even in her bio, it talks about her as the first Survivor South Africa female villain. And like, that is not a good reputation to have. Now, again, I think Marion is another one that has grown up quite a bit since last time she's played. Again, it's been 9 years. I'm expecting her to have a decent amount of life experience, and also is still a massive fan of the show. I think to the point where that is also probably a detriment to her as well, to where that is another thing mentioned in her bio, is how prominent she is in the Survivor South Africa community, which again, I knew, but the fact that they're even mentioning that in her bio makes me a bit worried that too many people will know, where everyone will know how connected she is, and through that, make her a target as well. I do think that's definitely a worry. Obviously, she's able to overcome that. I think she is one of the more likely winners on the board. I think she's someone that isn't going to be looked at as a threat for most of the game, and it's someone that I think still can have the respect to win the game, while also still going to be able to have the killer instinct to pull off moves. I feel like it is all there for Marion. The problem for me is her reputation, which is the main reason I couldn't put her higher, and she is here at number 5. Now, number 4, I'm surprised this person is as high as they are, because I came into this thinking that they were going to be pretty low around where Chappie's is, because this is another person that probably has one of the bigger targets on their back. I think Chappie's and this person are the 2 most notable names on this cast. So I expected this person to be low, but thinking about it a bit more, I think there is some serious potential for her here. And at number 4, we do have Palessa. And again, I think Palessa could actually do pretty well here, because I do think she's coming into the season with a big reputation, obviously, but I don't think it'll be in a negative way. I don't think it'll be in the way that people want to target her because she's a big name and because she's a threat. I think it'll be in a way that people want to work with her and want to trust her because she is this very notable figure. Mind you, that downside is still there, and that is the reason why she's not in my top few spots, because I do feel like there is still a lot of that potential for her to go home early. But I will say I do have a decent amount of faith in Palessa coming into the season, actually. I mean, she's obviously an extremely well-rounded player, and that was coming from a version of Palessa that didn't know the game. Like, she didn't know the show that well coming into the Philippines. She now has obviously followed the show for the years that's passed, and I feel like, again, this version of Palessa could do extremely well. I do still feel like the target on her back, though, could be a major downside here. That leaves her out of the top few spots. She's here at number 4. Now, number 3, we have the top placing post-merger here, and this is someone that I am very conflicted on, because I do think this is a person that on paper should be one of the more likely winners on the board. And because there were another person that was like top of mind, instant, one of the top contenders here. But I kind of thought about a bit more that dropped her a little bit here, obviously, to where I do think there is some potential for early boot potential from this person, and that person is Meryl. Now, Meryl is a person that, again, I think has all the skills to be a fantastic player. I think she's a very well-rounded player. She's pretty competent socially. I think she could be good strategically if she has all the correct information, and she's the type of player that I feel like coming into her return could gain this like killer instinct that she needed the first time around. Like, I feel like she is the player that coming into the season is kind of in the mold of what you would expect the winner of an all-star season to be. This like relative non-threat coming into the season, but one that still has the ability to play the game well after they do come into the season. And I feel like for Meryl here, I think she could have some like potential like Sarah Lacina upside here. But I think the more I thought about it, I do worry for her very early on, because that's another thing that happens on returnee seasons, is that these type of players typically get targeted very early in them. Where we saw Parvati get targeted very early in Fans versus Favorites. We saw Monica Padilla get targeted early in Cambodia. I do feel like there's potential for like Meryl to be in that spot as well. I feel like another worry is the fact that she's on the same tribe as Dante. Again, Dante, a person who was her ride or die the first time around. I do feel like they're going to continue that relationship here to where I do think that's a worry as well. But I do think those are short-term worries. Mind you, that does make her a very high variance player where she could be one of the first couple boots. I do think if she makes it beyond that, I think she is one of the more likely winners on the board, where I really feel like she has all the pieces to put together a winning game. But again, is that hesitancy with those first few rounds for me that keep her off the very top. She's here at number 3. Number 2, and my top 2 here are 2 people that I did not expect to be at the top 2 coming in to this ranking here. These are 2 players that are both from the pre-merger tribe, which I should mention that I do think the pre-merger tribe, while I do think it's filled with a lot of like not great players, I feel like the players that are great from that tribe will have a lot of potential moving forward, having this built-in underdog arc to propel them. And for me, these top 2 here are the top 2 for me from that tribe. And I did change this one literally at the last second. Coming into this ranking here, like literally seconds before I started recording here, I had this number 2 pick here at number 1. Swapped the last second, so I'm going to stick by it here. At number 2, we do have first boot from Survivor SA Philippines. We have Seamus. And again, the fact that Seamus is playing Survivor again is hilarious to me. Like, Seamus is someone that had some potential that first time around. Again, he did have half the tribe on his side, but does overplay his hand a bit that causes people to flip on him. But I think there was that potential there. And to me, I feel like he is the person that seems like he's learned the most from his last time, where I am expecting Seamus to come into this season a lot more prepared to play the game. I think he will be a lot more aware of managing his threat level and managing his perception. And I also feel like it's a great story for Seamus to win. I feel like for him to be the first boot on a season, come back for a return season and end up winning, I feel like that would be a great story to where I think if Seamus were to get to the end, I think he would be a pretty likely winner, especially because like I don't think Seamus is the type of player that can get to the end unless he plays very hard and aggressively. So I feel like those are major upsides for me. The thing that put him back at number 2 though for me is I do feel like there's one specific line in the bio of the other person that did make me put them higher. But also I do feel like, again, there is still this potential of him eventually overplaying his hand. I do think Seamus is someone that is hyper strategic. I think he is someone that is such a fan of the show and is going to try to play as hard as he can. And while I think he may be able to dial that back initially, I do feel like it might not be able to hold to get him to the very, very end. But again, he is someone that I actually do have a decent amount of confidence in here. So for me, he's here at number 2. Now number 1, my number 1 pick, my winner pick for Survivor South Africa, Return of the Outcasts, is literally my winner pick from the very last season. We're doing it again. I'm picking Dino. And Dino is someone that, again, like last season, I instantly just really liked. I thought he was a player that obviously was a massive fan of the show. Seemed like he had all the pieces to put together, but just never really did. Where he ends up coming off as a bit paranoid and overplays his hand at points. However, coming into this season, I still think there's the potential of that. And like Dino for me was always going to be like pretty high on this list. I think for sure like top 5 or so. But again, a lot of changing did happen after reading the bios. There we get talk of how he's going to rely more on his game knowledge and instinct, which I think are good things for him here. He's going to try to curb his paranoia. Again, that's fine. But really, this one line here is really what sealed the deal for me, where he says he feels like since he has nothing to lose, there's less pressure on him this time around. So he'll be playing with more freedom. And I feel like that is the exact philosophy I want to see from a winner pick on a returnee season. I feel like that is the style of player that I'm expecting to do well. Someone that isn't going to be super serious and like look at the game as this like life or death situation, but play the game for fun and obviously still fully try in the game. Like, this doesn't mean that Dino's not going to try to win, but again, I feel like he's going to be able to play in a way that he's not going to be so burdened by being so paranoid of the potential of him being an early boot and this worry of that, where he already had that happen. It doesn't matter at this point. And I feel like him being more free to play the game without these extra burdens, I feel like is exactly what I want to see from someone on the return here, to where mixing that in with the fact that I think he has the same level of potential as Seamus. I think they're both potential hyper strategic players. Like, just overall, again, like I feel pretty good about Dino coming into this season. Again, for me, he was always going to be one of the top few picks. But what really made him come to number 1 here was some of those lines from the bio that makes me think that he's looking in the right direction in how to approach this season. So for me, he lands here number 1. But there we go, and that is my ranking of every player on the cast of Survivor South Africa Return of the Outcasts, based on how likely I feel like they are to win this season. Now moving forward, I will be doing similar content for this season. Obviously, we're still a bit of ways until the premiere, over a month away, but still expect the mid-season power ranking, season review, and player ranking for the seasons. Again, kind of annoying that the mid-season power ranking is probably going to be only like 2 episodes, 2 weeks into the season, but I guess that's the way it has to go this time. Also, if you want to hear my thoughts on the season as it's going on, you can follow me at twitch.tv/TheMarineReview, where I stream every Wednesday and Sunday, usually around 11 o'clock Eastern time, where again, we talk about things like that. So you can obviously follow me there. Also in the reality TV space right now, we've still got a lot going on. We got Big Brother Australia, we got Challenge All-Stars, both of which are probably ending right before Survivor SA starts, I'm thinking. And then we're also going to have Big Brother and the Challenge USA going on at the same time as Survivor SA, which again, there's going to be a lot going on, which is what's very worrying moving forward. But I'll still find a way to cover it somehow. So stay tuned for videos on all those. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.